I want you to close your eyes and imagine the worst picture of a computer you've ever seen on the internet. The most questionable, most violating, the most concerning picture you ever seen on the internet. Then imagine some worse. Well, that's what we're going to be taking a look at least today. We're going to be taking a look at the internet's most cursed pictures of computers and their hardware. So without further ado, let's look at some very questionable pictures of computers. To start off, let's talk about some beans. First off, I have a lot of questions about this picture here. First of those is just going to be, why are you putting beans in your AIO loop? Or not all in one, it's more like your liquid loop. The main reason why I say that is because this definitely looks like high-end fittings. I 100% think that all of these parts in the system are what I would consider high-end, and therefore I would not want to put beans, which are not particularly clean, especially like they fall apart, there's grit, all this stuff, mush, into a liquid loop, especially with something like the CPU there having, well, fine fins that allow the CPU to be cooled. So if you put beans in there, it's going to clog that all up, and then you're not going to get any cooling. So my personal thought is, I think my guess is that some younger kid probably unscrewed it and stuffed a bunch of beans in there. I would not be surprised if that was the case, because I just don't see anybody in their right mind doing this. Regardless of the internet karma, you're going to be, for a lot of work trying to clean the system out. Even if you are regularly going to clean the system out, you have to do even more work. So this is just completely cringe. So this next picture is why you shouldn't drink and play on your computer. And I don't mean like alcoholic, I just mean like any beverage whatsoever. You better be very careful if you put that on your desk, because that sucker spills. Well, you're going to have a fun time when you have a computer that looks like this. Now, I'm just going to go off the assumption that this is milk, and I hope it's milk. And it really looks like my guess is this computer is on the side, and this guy had his nice big old full glass of milk, and he was playing his games, I don't know, first-person shooters, whatever we're playing nowadays, and that man just cleans off the glass of milk. And that sucker sails, or at least falls over, and does what you would call projectile milk, and that sucker cleans off and into the computer. And obviously I think this man has some type of fan on the top here, and that sucker does a sprinkler system inside the computer, and he ends up with Milk PC. Now, normally Milk PC would be fine if you can... Actually, I really can't think of this ending well. I'd say if you got water in here and the computer was off, you might be okay. But milk has a lot of stuff in it, and I would say that that'd be a little bit concerning for the residue it leave. I also think this image isn't likely fabricated, because you've got an SSD in here and you've got decent RAM, and I find it hard to believe that someone would just... Yeah, this does not look like a fabricated image to me at all. This looks like a lot of pain. A lot of pain. Now, this isn't cursed at all. Anybody that says this is cursed is clearly never been on the internet before, and you are factually wrong. There is no arguing with this. That's a fact. You are wrong if you think this is cursed. This is the best PC build, objectively, that I have ever seen in my life, and that you will too. There is absolutely no question in it. It is a fact. You cannot deny it. Nothing. Let me know down in the comments your opinion of the Shrek PC, which I think is actually more of a TV, sadly. Unless we have some games. No, we have PlayStation. I think this is probably more of a monitor, but still no issues here. Oh, so this man has tried to run Roblox. Now, this is cursed. This is cursed. And the reason why I say it's cursed is because you look at this at first and you go, oh yeah, that's fine. It's looks like a firecracker on the top of the computer while the computer's on. Okay, cool. Would I recommend putting flammables and explosives inside of your computer? Definitely not. But, I mean, sure, if that's what you choose to do and it's a junk computer, okay. But there is a Lysol can next to it. Now, while it's all fun and games while the explosives remain inside the computer, I don't think it'd be fun in games when the explosives take a jump outside the computer and have a fun time in your house with a Lysol can. Now, that's just my very uneducated but very educated opinion. I don't think that's the best idea. Don't try that at home, kids. This is very questionable for a couple reasons. First off, this man has titled this post, "Rate My Brother's Setup." Now, I would assume that if you're still living with your brother, you're rather young. I mean, I'm still living with my brother in my parents' house, but I'm going to university. I still think in that same situation, you're looking at someone probably under like the 25 range, under college or under. I personally think that this is not the smartest idea or safest idea because most, like this is like just a regular air fan. Most air fans use mains voltage, which I don't think is very, alternating current, mains voltage. I don't think that is the safest idea, A, to have around, and B, to have situated on a computer. It depends, of course, but I don't think this is something that I would allow a, I just don't know the age here, but this makes me very uncomfortable, especially because if I were to guess, you're looking at probably a 13 or 14-year-old that did this. And I don't think that is something I'd recommend for a 13 or 14-year-old to be doing. We've moved on to a classic. This is the classic cursed computer image of the internet. You have the picture in which I would describe as just how you're supposed to wash your computer. And I think just a quick glance at this really makes you wonder. A couple things, actually. There's actually a larger image here. So you look at this, and there's a couple things you wonder. First off, the power supply is nowhere to be found, which thank God, because you can see that it's been unplugged from the motherboard as well as completely removed from the system. Obviously, power supplies, if you're unfamiliar, basically take that alternating back and forth current and make it a steady flow for your components in your computer to use. So since you're using mains voltage, of course, I think it's 110 volts in the United States, you're going to be looking at some pretty high voltage, and the capacitors in there are not particularly, they're pretty high voltage too. So if you start throwing liquid in there, you're pretty much discharging those as well, depending on, conductivity, all that stuff. Basically, you just don't want to have water and, pretty much equivalent to wall voltage, mains voltage involved. So thank goodness this guy did not make it that cursed. But we can take a look at this, and you can see it still makes me uncomfortable. I mean, I've been someone that's pretty much gone through and washed a graphics card, and heck, we might even have a future video coming around about what happens when you wash all the computer parts in your computer. So it's very interesting to look at this and go, yeah, it does definitely makes me cringe a little bit inside, or die inside, depending on, your personal preference. Your CPU has exceeded the temperature of the center of the sun. A little prolonged use at this temperature may cause some problems. Oh, yeah. I definitely agree. I find this picture interesting, to say the least, especially because I don't particularly, the sensor is either long gone, and you have pretty much created like a, yeah, dude, you're already dead at this point. Or you've BS something and you've modded something out in your OS. I still, especially because it's Celsius, man, you're cooked. Like at this point, by the time you're taking this picture, man, unless your computer's like 12 miles away and you're running like one of those actually, if you're 12 miles away, I think you might still be screwed. So yeah, I don't really know if there's any justification for this. You're really, oh, so we're not at like 27 million degrees Fahrenheit, but we are pretty toasty, I would say the least. So a couple things when you look at this picture. It's cursed because the dude is trying to fake a photo, not because the fact that this is what this implies. First off, this cat is 100% not doing this of its own free will. This man is holding this cat over there. Now, as you can see, this computer is on, and you've got the wine glass. Now, it makes me wonder how many photos of like this were attempted but ended badly. This man clearly, he's not on his computer, obviously, because his headphones are there. And that cat is probably not feeling too spicy because it's probably got its arm held out. So it makes me questionable because this is more cursed because people are trying really hard for internet karma. I'm actually really impressed with how clean this looks. Surprisingly, you've got, it looks like you've got a graphics card in there. You've got Windows 10. You've got everything. That looks like a really nice setup. You just removed the monitor, and who knows, the monitor could have gone bad. And recycling is a great thing. No question there, especially with our Lord and Savior, Mr. Linus, up there. We had no issues at all. So to describe what happened to this poor CPU, we have to describe the highest level of punishment a computer can ever receive. And to say that is, this CPU looks like it just got yoinked out of a computer and got sent out the window of a speeding 75-mile-an-hour freighter truck and got run over a couple times on the way. So I clearly don't think this CPU deserved this, and judging by the silver or the gold contacts on the top, you're at least looking at an i-series processor. This isn't like a Celeron or anything like that. It could be an i3, but my guess is that, actually, can we see this? Yes, it is. It's an i3 2120. Is that actually a real processor? 322120. It is! And it looks like that's the processor we're looking at. Now, did that i3 deserve this? Probably not at all. I don't think that this deserved that level of punishment. Someone says salt and vinegar chip. Oh my gosh. Oh, what's wrong with this picture? This is the classic PC computer. If you've never built a PC in a cardboard box, you haven't lived yet. Clearly, this is like the ultimate level of computer genius here. You just build it in a pizza box, and that way you have your pizza in the same box as your computer, and you go get your pizza and you put it in it's like, there's nothing wrong with that. I don't understand. It's like the best thing ever. Just a friendly reminder, guys. If you're having to put hot glue to keep all your cables together because the cables and the glue inside of them already have disintegrated to the level where they're falling apart, it may be time to get a different power supply. So if I were to come up with an idea of how to fit every single operating system into one operating system, I would send you this picture. This picture makes you question a lot. Now, what this is supposed to look like is you have both Windows, you have both like Ubuntu, and then you have Mac OS all in one. But likely what this is Windows running a VM of Ubuntu that is modified to look like Mac OS, or at least have the same specs as Mac OS. Why are we putting the mouse pad up there? I mean, I personally use I use the two-finger rule, guys. I use the two-finger rule. You take two fingers and you put them on the trackpad. And that's what I use to navigate using my mouse. But I think, some people use their thumbs. Some people have the preference of thumbs. And they use their thumbs to navigate on their computer. But I couldn't imagine typing like down here and then moving up here to scroll and then moving back down here. I like to have situated and then have one handled like this. I just couldn't imagine like doing that. That just feels so fundamentally wrong to me. Toilet PC. Has your computer ever been so bad that it's literally on the level of a toilet? Well, actually, I think a toilet has more over a PC, because if you have a toilet PC, my personal preference is it should be able to multitask. That is, assist you after you do your Taco Bell run, as well as play your games to keep you entertained while you deal with your Taco Bell run. So I find that very interesting that we have a liquid-cooled toilet PC. Now, I have a couple things wrong with this image. First of those is that this power supply reminds me of someone that's choking for air. Why? Well, because power supplies work by taking in air from the bottom, assuming your fan's situated on the bottom, and pushing it out the side in which the power plug is. I'd neither see the power plug, and I would assume that power supply is pretty much enclosed in all directions. So I have a lot of sympathy for that power supply because, well, good lord, is it not getting some air. Everything else, though, looks like it's actually pretty well cooled. You've got 3 fans. You got one on each side and one on the top. I mean, I don't see any issues with that. It does look like someone, though, went through and, yeah, it looks like they've got a computer behind them as well. And looks like a monitor. So I can't really complain too much. It just looks very disconcerting, to say the least. So someone looks like they took like a laser cutter, a liquid cutter, or water cutter, sorry, and water jet cutter, whatever they're called, and they went to town, and it makes me extremely uncomfortable. Out of all the pictures we've looked at today, makes me pretty uncomfortable because when you look at this, like I have a lot of problems with this image because this is actually the second time I've recorded this because the first time my camera didn't record. And the first time I didn't even notice the fact that I was more concerned about the monitor because, well, some monitors, especially older ones, contain mercury, especially in the backlight. I would be careful about that, especially because you don't want to get that exposure. That's toxic. But I didn't think about the battery. Assuming this person still has the battery in, lithium-ion batteries are kind of flammable when they get exposed to oxygen. And I can only imagine when we go through and we cut those open, this may not have been the smartest idea. A lot of this stuff is not necessarily cursed on the surface. Like, yeah, you cut a hole in your computer. Okay, that looks bad, okay. But it's more cursed in the fact that, like, there was more stupid stuff that was going on that people didn't think through. Like, I can only imagine this person thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to get some Reddit karma. And then it catches fire and burns down the building. There are some classes, of course, in most high schools now that offer like an electrical or a computer engineering class that basically is like basic hardware. And I can tell from the edge that this looks like a locker, and it looks like the classic tiles in a high school, as well as the carpet that's in a high school. I'd assume this is a high school. This computer looks like it experienced the full force of gravity off the top of the building, especially because it makes me wonder at what level does the back panel get sheared off and cause the front to be bent out. Honestly, it looks like this bottom part experienced the full brunt of the force, and it looks like it got chucked out the window. I don't even see a cooler on here as well as a graphics card, so I'd assume the cooler itself got sheared off in the impact. It looks like this sucker had to get dropped because even if you threw this around, you're still not going to create that much damage on a steel case, assuming that looks like an old like Dell Optiplex or something. So I am going to go back to bed after I finish editing this video. I apologize for the more rather lackluster content, and this Friday or Saturday actually, we will get back to swapping out computer parts while it's on, and a couple other videos that I have planned. So subscribe if you're interested in those, and as always, thank you guys very much for watching.